Okay, so we're starting right here with this problem that we left in the last video. And the first part of it, I think, is no problem. Actually, I think you know how to do this problem, and you may well have, thought about it between videos. The very first thing that we can easily do is we can simplify this. So what does this give us? 7 plus 4 is 11, and minus another 6. That would bring this down to 5x plus 13 equals 28. And now we may be stuck because you might be able to see what this is. You might well, but then again, you might not. And as the numbers get bigger and weirder, when we start incorporating things like decimals and fractions and negative numbers and all sorts of stuff like that, it gets way more complicated on a computational level. The simplicity remains at the core. My son, it is Zen, and you must feel it. And what's also true is life is complicated and things get complicated. So we need a system. And the system is algebra. And this is like, in a sense, this is like the core of algebra. This is like the one thing that hopefully almost everybody remembers from algebra, even if they don't remember how to do it. And that is this idea of thinking of an equation as a balance scale. Okay. So an equation is a balance scale. Balance scale. And if you remember the way a balance scale works is like you might have, let's go over here before we'll come back to this in a minute. Okay. You have a balance scale and it is currently balanced with like 2 squares and 3 circles and a square, and they balance. This is a current balance. What can we do? We can remove something. As long as we remove the same thing from both sides of the scale will still balance, right? So if we were to get rid of one of these and one of these, what would we be left with? The balance scale would still be here. We would have a square, we'd have 3 little circles, and the scale would still balance. And then what's also true is we can add the same thing to both sides as long as we add the exact same thing to both sides. So for example, if we add a green triangle or 2 to this side and a green triangle or 2 to this side, as long as we put the same amount on both sides, the balance scale stays balanced. And that's the whole idea behind working with algebra equations. So once you've got that concept, we can easily get rid of the scale itself. And like we said in our live session, what we want to do is we're trying to find out what this x is. That's our question. And what we're going to try to do is peel stuff from the outside. And as long as we follow the rule and subtract the same thing from both sides, we know that the equation is still in balance and we can move forward as a legitimate step. Now, the great news here is that we chose 13 because plus 13 and minus 13, they cancel each other out, right? So on this side of the equation, all we're left with is 5x. And then over here, we just have a little bit of arithmetic to do. 28 minus 13 is 8 minus 3 is 5. 2 minus 1 is 1. And now we've got a much simpler equation, something that you could possibly look at and just say, I know what that is. 5 times x is 15. What is x? X equals 3. And that is the answer. And I don't want to take up any time, but in your actual classes, you may be required to take that answer and then plug in 3 every place that you had an x up here. So 7 times 3 plus 4 times 3 minus 6 times 3 plus 13 equals 28. Does that work out? It should work out, and that would be the check. And we'll do that at some point, but I think it's more important to keep building up the skills, and then we'll circle back and do whatever your teachers need you to do when the school year starts, okay? One more problem like this. 10x plus, what do we do? 5x minus 4x plus 17 equals 50. Okay. So again, I'm guessing you can't just look at this question, look at this equation and say, I know what x is. So this is where the system comes in. Very first thing we learned is let's simplify all of these x's down to one term with an x in it. Something x. 10 plus 5 is 15, minus a 4 gives us 11x. We still have plus 17 equals 50. And now we want to simplify this further. So what are we going to do? We're going to do something that cancels out on this side. So we've chosen a minus 17 because it's going to work really well for this. And then we're forced to do that on the other side to keep the equation in balance. Change colors. Plus 17 minus 17 goes away. 11x equals 50 minus 17. What is that? I'm going to borrow. I have 10 minus 7 is 3. 4 minus 1 is 3. 11x equals 33. X equals 11 times something equals 33. The answer is 3. I'm going to leave you hanging with one more problem. We can work on it in the next video. 4x plus 10x minus 8x plus, I want to make sure this works out, just plus 24 equals 60. I think that will work out. Okay. So we'll do this in the next lesson, okay? Bye.